So Wazza is over there bottling his previous brew at the moment. This is the next one that's all ready to go.
Yes.
All laid out, ready for the brewer to come in and make their brew.
Yep.
Can you maybe just talk us through what we've got here? It's an upgraded version of a homebrew kit, really.
Yeah, that's right. We've got the hops in 3 different stages, which means that the beer can be tailored a bit more to a commercial style. You can also take a bit more advantage of the hop flavours that are inherently there. The first one that we would put in would be a bittering hop. The next one is partially bittering, and then the very last one is an aroma hop. The last one's probably where a lot of the actual subtle flavours are coming from. The bitterness is really being drawn out by this first section of the boil.
So before we get to that boil stage though, where the hops go in, we've got to put all of our work together. And we should probably point out that this is the extract that's going into this brew, but it's significantly bigger volume than what we make normally out of a tin.
Yeah, the kettle size is around 60 litres of liquid. There's obviously a bit of loss in the bottom of the kettle because the hops, when it goes off the boil, drop to the bottom. The kettle doesn't actually empty to the bottom, so you're leaving the hops behind, which is a good thing. And the end result, by the time we go through the process, you'll end up with around 50 litres of end product.
I don't know whether we can see on the camera, maybe we can, but this jug here has a number of different malt extracts in there.
You can see at the very bottom that's actually glucose, the clearest one of them. The glucose is a bit heavier and drops to the bottom of the jug.
Okay.
The others are the liquid malts. In this case, there's two different liquid malts.
Right.
They're about the same weight, so they just tend to mix in together.
Yeah. Yep.
These are what we call the fermentables. So that'll be the dextrose there. There's a grain bag here, which is purely, in this case, unlike your case, you're deriving your sugars and fermentables and flavour comes from the grains.
Yep.
We're just using these as a bit of flavour. Guy's about to transfer Wazza's beer. He's been over there bottling and supervising his beer. And Sky's now going to transfer that beer out of the kettle and put it into the fermenter here. As you can see, the kettle's quite steamy, so that it's being transferred at about 90 degrees. It's going to run through a heat exchanger here, which will drop it down to 25 degrees, ready to pitch the yeast. You can see the wort coming out here. Sky's going to take a hydrometer reading, so that'll tell us the starting gravity, which will give us an indication later down the track of the alcohol content. It also tells us down the track whether the beer has actually fermented, which is important because the customer needs to know that their beer has fermented and gone according to plan. Again, you can see the Sky's ensuring that she's not getting her hands or anything into the wort. Cleanliness is very important in any beer making situation. And she's adding the yeast now. So that yeast has been rehydrated. And rehydration process is when you go and get we're using 25 grams of yeast, put it into tepid water or just warm water, and let it sit for 15 minutes so it begins to multiply, and then we throw it into the wort, and the wort's going to be a similar temperature to the rehydration water temperature, so we don't shock the yeast, and it allows it to kick off quickly, which reduces the chance of infection down the track. The quicker you can get the yeast to start multiplying, the less chance you've got of infection from other yeasts or other things in the air. So this is just running the last. We're putting fresh water in through the lines now, and that's just pushing the last of the wort into the fermenter. There we go, so that fermenter is now filled to the level that it needs to be. You can see there's a bit of head space there for the fermentation to take place. It goes on. that's now ready to be taken to the fermentation room, where we'll put an airlock in it, and it'll sit in the fermentation room for around 10 days, depending on which beer it is. And we'll do a hydrometer reading to make sure that the beer has fermented out properly. This room sits at 18 degrees, year in, year out, as long as we don't have any breakdowns.
We're now making a bit of a jump. This is the third beer, and it seems like a bit of a leap because we're going from the Belgian wheat beer to a Northern English nut brown ale. So this is the Duck's Nuts Brown Ale, and although it seems like a bit of a leap in terms of the colour, we're just creeping up in terms of alcohol content, but also the bitterness. This is kind of quite a malty beer, but with lots of hops in it, so that they even each other out. So it's quite well balanced. It's also a good one for people to start drinking craft beer because the kind of flavours in there are the kind of flavours that people are familiar with. So you're probably going to get things like toffee and caramel and chocolate and that kind of stuff. So nothing sort of too strange and beery in there. I've done some blind tastings of Newcastle Brown when people don't know which one's which, and this one wins every time.
Seriously, never. I do not drink beer.
How are you going with it?
Yeah.
Oh, good. You like
Beautiful,
it?
it's beautiful.
Yeah, I can taste the caramel now. Like second.
So that's mostly what I get from it. Coffee as well?
I got coffee first off.
Yeah.
Chocolate once I'd swallowed it, but on the second glass, caramel.
But I mean, to be objective, that's the kind of flavour and smell that I get mostly initially, is a caramel, like a burnt toffee. But then a little coffee and a little bit of sort of chocolate towards the end.
So we've got Dave here, he's an experienced beer drinker from England. He's only been out for 4 weeks. So he's been experiencing the European industry, the English industry. So what do you think of the first three?
Fantastic. First one was nice and light. Second one was very wheaty, like a European beer. It was lovely. It had a slight taste of banana. Really nice. And the third one was a chocolatey, warm, coffee, caramel. There's all sorts going on. Really good.
Yeah.
Really good.
It's quite a complex flavour, that third one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And of course, that was the one you saw us brewing with Mark earlier, in an earlier episode.
This is Uncle Sam. It's called that because it's an American pale ale. It's made with only two malts, about 95%. A very basic, lightly killed American malt, and then on top of that there's a very small percentage of what's called a pale crystal malt. So the colour that you're getting is all coming from a very small addition of a medium killed malt. So it's American malts, grains, and it's hopped with only American hops. It's Cascade hops. There's 3 hop additions to it. So the first one that you put in very early gives it a bitter taste. It takes the sweetness off. The second hop addition that I do are called the flavour hops. So when you're tasting the hops, they're from later in the boil. And then before you start drinking it and you smell it, the hops go in right at the end. They're not cooked at all, so you just smell the raw hops if you like. And it's all American hops. There's a little bit of an addition of a German hop just to smooth things out a bit, but essentially it's 99% American hops.
What's this one called?
So it's Uncle Sam. So it's a pale ale. The classic version of this that you might have had is Sierra Nevada's Pale Ale, which is a pretty famous American craft beer that kind of started a lot of the craft beer movement off in America, really. So the classic smell that you'll get, if anything, is kind of a citrusy, fruity smell. So these are the hops that you'll get in Little Creatures. So the smell will be sort of a fruity smell that you get out of the Little Creatures. Thank you all very, very much. Glad you enjoyed it.
Thank you.